Hello, my name is Janice Perry and I work in the Authorisations and Reliefs Unit based in Neenah in County Tipperary. Today I'll outline the special procedure that is temporary admission and some of the permanent reliefs that are provided for in the EU legislation and how goods qualify and what's involved in claiming the relief. Some of these may be of benefit to your business from the 1st of January. I'll go through the temporary admission procedure first. So normally when goods are imported into Ireland from outside the EU, they're liable to import charges, customs duty, VAT, and where applicable, anti-dumping duty or countervailing duty. However, in the case of certain goods which are imported on a temporary basis, exemption from these charges is available. So eligibility for temporary admission is based on the type of goods coming in and their use before they are re-exported. So on our side here, it just shows an example of goods coming from a UK supplier in for a trade show in Cork, and the goods go back out. They are re-exported, returned to the UK. Just to give an example of some of the types of goods that can qualify under the temporary admission procedure, we have example of artwork coming in for an exhibition, stage equipment that could be coming in for a concert, goods that we put on display or demonstrated at a trade show or a fair, and also replacement equipment that could be coming in for a short period of time required in a business. Now, there are certain conditions that must be met in order for goods to qualify for the temporary admission procedure. The goods are come in for a specified period of time before they'll be re-exported. So the maximum period of time that's normally allowed is 24 months. The time can be shorter than that, a matter of weeks or 2 to 3 months. For example, we say goods that are imported today for an exhibition must be re-exported by the 5th of October 2022. They can be re-exported before that, but the outer limit is the 24 months. Now, there are some types of goods for which the time limit is actually shorter. I mentioned already a replacement means of production that could be needed on a short-term basis within a company, and the maximum time period for this would be only 6 months. Other conditions that apply under the temporary admission procedure, the goods are not intended to undergo any change during their stay. So they mustn't be processed in any way, they mustn't be enhanced in any way, they're not going to be changed in any way. What comes in goes back out. Security must also be provided to cover the amount of import charges that would normally be due for the importation of goods. This can be made by a cash deposit or an undertaking that's put in place with a financial institution. Details on how to apply for a guarantee or an undertaking will be given in another presentation by my colleagues in session 10. This is a separate application process and a separate authorisation. So, if you want to apply for the temporary admission authorisation, how do we go about that? Just to remind you that any questions you may have on the temporary admission or the reliefs can be sent in to Slido and enter the code or 184. So how do I go about applying for the temporary admission procedure? Okay, there are several options available. If you import goods on a very regular basis, you can put an authorisation in place and you can apply for this on the customs decision system. Our slide here shows you go to revenue.ie under our customs and traders agents into the temporary admission section under our temporary admission rules and procedures, and you'll find the link there to the EU customs decision system and details on how to access that. Once all the information is submitted through the trader portal and everything is in order, the application is forwarded on to the Customs Control Officer to carry out an evaluation, which will usually include a visit to the company, and they'll be looking at what's happening in the company and do the goods qualify under the temporary admission procedure. They'll also look at calculating the reference amount for the comprehensive guarantee. They'll look back over the previous 12 months, look at imports and take a point in time within those months and look at the highest value of goods and the rate of duty that is applicable. Another option that is available for importing goods under temporary admission is the ATA Carney. This is an internationally recognised document to temporarily import or export certain goods into or out of the EU. So the Carney is issued in the country from where the goods are exported, and it's then presented with the goods when they arrive. So in Ireland, if the goods are being exported, because as I mentioned, the Carneys can be used for both importing of goods and exporting of goods under the temporary admission procedure. The Carneys are issued by our colleagues in the Dublin Chamber of Commerce, and their details are available at www.eat.ie on the Chamber of Commerce website. If you use an ATA Carney, you will not have to complete the customs declaration that's normally required at import. The Carney also provides security to cover the duty on the goods you import, so there isn't a separate guarantee required when you use the Carney. Now, there are only certain types of goods that can be used under the Carney. So, for example, commercial samples, professional equipment, and goods that are coming in for exhibitions, fairs, or trade shows. You can also make an application on the customs declaration at the time of importation. The temporary admission declaration is lodged into AEP, and it will be lodged into AIS from November. The relevant import duties are calculated, and that acts then as the guarantee and security is taken on deposit. It's considered a cash deposit. The goods are released then to the temporary admission procedure, and when the goods are re-exported within the specified time limit, the security will then be refunded. So I'll move on now to some of the reliefs that are available on the permanent importation of goods. Unlike the temporary admission procedure, where the goods are coming to Ireland for a limited period of time before they're re-exported, the goods in these instances under the reliefs are coming in on a permanent basis. So if we look at our slide here, the goods will be coming in from the UK, they're coming to our premises in Athlone, and they're staying here. They're not re-exported, okay? They're a permanent importation. The goods are released to free circulation with relief from the payment of import charges. And with these reliefs, there's actually no security in the form of a guarantee or a cash deposit like there is under the temporary admission procedure. It is a relief from duties at the time of importation. So just to give an example, there are quite a few reliefs that are available. So just to give you a flavour of some of the ones that are available, under the transfer of residence, a person transferring their normal place of residence from outside the EU can import their personal property free from payment of import charges. Now again, there are certain conditions that must be fulfilled in order to be able to avail of this relief. The person must have had their normal place of residence outside the EU for a continuous period of at least 12 months and been in the possession and use of their personal effects for a minimum period of 6 months. Another category is disaster relief, goods imported by charitable or humanitarian or state organisations in order to meet their needs during a period of their activity. The granting of this relief is subject to the approval of the European Commission and will set out the scope and the conditions of this relief. Another category is the category of examination, analysis and testing. So goods which are to undergo any type of testing within a business to determine maybe their composition, their quality, technical characteristics for the purposes of information, industrial or commercial research. But again, there are certain criteria that must be met. The goods must be completely used up or destroyed during the course of the examination or the testing. If not, it must be agreed with customs what will happen to the remaining product. It might be rendered commercially valueless or destroyed after the testing. For this particular relief, an application must be made in advance to the Authorisation and Reliefs Unit, as it must be determined in advance what records must be maintained, the period in which the testing must be carried out, based on the information that we receive from the importer, the types of goods that are involved, and what testing is going to be carried out. So a control officer will carry out an evaluation once application has been made. A customs declaration is completed as normal on the importation of the goods. The goods are released to free circulation, and the relief is claimed by entering a specific procedure code on the import declarations. So for our example of examination, analysis and testing, the code is C33, and this will stop the relevant import duties being charged at the time of importation. As I mentioned, there are other categories available, too many maybe to go through today, but we have more information on our website on the various different reliefs that could be available. I'll go through another one now that is available that may be of benefit, and it's known as the returned goods relief. So this is a relief, again from the import duties that are normally payable at the time of importation for goods being released into free circulation. And it covers cases where non-EU goods that were originally exported as union goods from the EU are returned. The EU goods are exported from Ireland. If we look at our example here, kind of the opposite to our temporary admission. The goods are exported from Ireland to the UK, and then for some reason, the goods have to be re-imported. And again, this is a relief. There's no guarantee involved like in the temporary admission procedure. It's relief that's given at the time of importation. Again, like with other reliefs and the temporary admission procedure, there are certain conditions that must be met in order to qualify for relief from duty on returned goods. The goods must be returned within a period of 3 years. The goods must be returned in the state in which they were exported. So again, they can't be processed or treated in any way when they're abroad. Proof of export must be available to customs. So this can be in the form of the export declaration that was issued at the time when the goods were exported, or an INF3 form. Again, the claim to relief is made on the import declaration at the time of import, and the relief is applied. There will be no duties applied then to that import declaration. And just to note, for VAT relief, it's only available where the goods are re-imported by the economic operator that exported the goods. Now, I've gone through some of the reliefs that are available on a permanent basis and the temporary admission procedure. Thank you for your attention. I hope some of this information, was useful, and there may be something in the area of temporary admission or reliefs that could be of benefit to your business, from January. Thank you very much.
That's great, Janice. Thanks very much for that. And we'll move into the panel discussion in relation to temporary admissions and reliefs. And I'd like to welcome back Rita Kennedy, who obviously had given the earlier presentations. And Janice, thanks very much for that presentation. I think it's continuing to be interesting to see the crossover with a number of the other modules that we've already covered. And if people didn't tune in yesterday, there's import modules for moving goods by air or containerised traffic, low traffic, or by ferry and the ro-ro traffic. So that could be interesting to go back on the procedures there. And equally, there's another one on export. So I think there's a couple of questions around some of the process and procedure and declarations that are required for those processes, import or export. So I'd suggest that you might go back and look at those modules. And I think you made just a brief reference in terms of VAT, and we have a VAT module coming up at 2 o'clock. So again, for the VAT 1, registration is open, and feel free to register for that and join us at 2 o'clock. So I think, look, it's really interesting kind of going through that process, and there clearly is businesses need to look at their model and look and see, particularly where there's reliefs available, should be looking to see whether or not they can avail of them. We're pressing that businesses do that exercise to get the benefit of the reliefs.
Absolutely.
So I think what we'll do is we'll run down through some of the questions then that have come in terms of reliefs. Janice, can I still get returned goods relief if my goods break down while being used in a third country? And they have to be fixed. Yeah, it does. It covers, that's an exceptional case. Yeah, if the intention is for the goods to go out to carry out a specific function, it could be a piece of machinery. If it breaks down while it's away, it's not going to be of any use. So obviously, that can be repaired. So normal repair can be carried out. If the intention is to carry out a process or to change, for example, that piece of machinery, no, you'd be looking at maybe something like outward processing then. But no, the intention is it goes out, the same machine comes back. But of course, if it breaks down, yes, it can be repaired. And just
repaired back to the same state that it was. You're not going to enhance that machine in any way. So normal repair, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, that's great. And Breda, maybe something on the temporary admissions. Can goods travel to more than one country using an ATA Carney?
Yeah, they definitely can. Like the ATA Carney is an internationally recognised document, so you would, if you're applying for it, like to export, to be through the Dublin Chamber of Commerce, as Janice said, and your guarantee would be via the Dublin Chamber of Commerce. But each time the goods exit or re-enter the EU, the Carney is stamped. It's actually a paper document, but it works very well for moving, in and out of the EU and various member states as well. Okay. So it would be something that would be worth considering, yes.
It's streamlined enough for
now, there are three types. Sorry, yeah, there's three types. Isn't there? Professional equipment, commercial samples.
And then for exhibition or trade shows.
Oh, exhibition, trade. Yeah, so that's the type of goods. But if you're in any doubt, I suppose, of what goods are covered, to contact the Chamber of Commerce and they'll give you any advice. And Janice provided the email details there in her presentation. So if you're not sure if your goods are covered, make that contact to see.
That's perfect.
And no customs declarations are required then if you have your Carney.
They are required.
They're not required.
Not required.
Yeah.
Okay. So from an administrative burden point of view, people might like to see whether that model suits their business. In terms of the reliefs, then again, Janice, do I always need, I think you covered it towards the end in terms of talking about some of the returns, do I always need an INF3 form for returned goods relief?
Yeah, no, the INF3, where that really comes as a benefit, you could have a situation where goods are exported from they're exported from Ireland, but for some reason you've a sister company based in Italy, and for business reasons it's beneficial to send them back to Italy. So if you issue the INF3, it's proof to the Italian Customs Administration that those goods have left another member state, but they were exported from another member state, because they obviously wouldn't have access to our export declaration. Sure. But we'd have that, so we wouldn't need the INF3. So of use where goods are leaving one member state and being returned to another member state.
For documentary evidence.
Yeah.
On the temporary admissions, Breda, can private boats be temporarily imported into the EU, and if so, for how long?
Yeah, they can be imported, and it's actually by the sole act of crossing the border is covered for private boats within the legislation. And the timeline, like as Janice said, timelines are different for different goods, and it's 18 months for a private boat.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay, that's great. And that's a very specific reply back that covers everything. I think we haven't been able to answer a lot of the questions. I think with the level of complexity for some of the issues that we're talking about, we've had very few answers. It's just a very plain, simple yes. On the reliefs, do I need an authorisation to avail of release from import duties? I think you covered some of the reliefs piece here.
Some of the reliefs you do. The one I went through there was the examination, analysis and test, and because of the specific conditions that are attached to that, we need to put an authorisation in place, because we need to look and see, are the goods, what happens to the goods? Are they used up? Are they being tested? And are they completely destroyed, or rendered, commercially valueless? There are others that you don't need, pre-approval of that. It's just at the time of importation. You may need some documentary evidence. A lot of the reliefs, I shouldn't say a lot, some of the reliefs, one of the conditions is that they're donated. So you may just need something from the person who's donating them just to have available to customs. So not always. We have a lot of information. There's a lot of different categories under the permanent reliefs, and we have it broken down on the website. So that would explain if you do need to get in contact with us beforehand to put an authorisation in place. But definitely the examination, analysis and test, that's one of the more, I suppose, used ones. So that is one of the more common ones that would be of benefit to companies.
And businesses interested can go onto the website and double check those or equally put the query in. And is duty payable on customer returns to Ireland from the UK?
So that'd be where a customer is returning their items from the UK to us.
Might need something more specific, or tease that example out in a little bit more detail. If somebody wants to follow up with the question, we'll try and take it. But again, if not, just pop the question into the Brexit Queries mailbox and we'll come back on that. On the temporary admissions, Breda, we hire goods into the UK. Can we use a temporary admission?
Hire goods
into the UK? No, where the temporary admission procedure, I think, Breda, would be... the temporary admission procedure we're talking about is when the goods are coming into Ireland. So it may be for that particular business.
It's a HMRC question.
It could be temporary admission from the HMRC side, maybe.
Yes,
because they're implementing the same types of procedures, so it might be worthwhile checking with the HMRC if
Yeah.
it could apply from the other side. Yeah.
Or a Carney could work, Linda, in that instance,
Oh,
because
yeah.
the Carney does work both ways. You know, if you're sending
Yeah.
your goods out to the UK, you could put the
Okay.
Carney in place here, and it travels with the goods and it's presented to HMRC Customs
Okay,
at
that's an
import.
important clarification.
So just where it's kind of it's
Yeah.
both
Yeah.
ways, you know, and
Yeah.
then goods that would be coming from the UK here can travel on the Carney.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
definitely worth businesses checking out the
it's an
scope of
option.
application of the ATA
Yeah.
Carneys, I think, as well then. And then, Janice, there's a number of questions around empty loads, pallets, containers, cages, bulk containers. Does the relief, in terms of the relief, does empty include the pallets, empty cages?
Yeah, coming back in,
Yeah.
that they've gone out with goods. Yeah, there is a procedure for those. There's actually an oral declaration. We've received, a number of queries on that. They're really coming to light now, like,
Yeah.
you know, with the UK. Yeah, so the pallets, the cylinders, the boxes that are coming back in empty to be refilled, there is a procedure in place with that. It's an oral declaration. So if companies want to get in contact with us, you know, we'll be able to explain that specific procedure to them about the empty boxes.
Well, we have a
You're-
procedure to cover that.
Yeah, you're,
facilitate
you're
that.
declaring it to temporary admission by oral declaration,
Okay.
you know, because they're empty packings, and that the legislation allows the oral declaration to be used. So as Janice said, we were working through that process, and we've been in contact with a few companies on it as well. So if anybody
There
wants
is
to
interest in it.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
And clearly there's multiple questions around that space, so
Yeah.
obviously businesses are interested in it. Breda, just looking at it on the temporary admission side again, our installers bring tools into GB to install equipment. Can a Carney be used for the tools, or would relief have to be applied for from HMRC? Probably covered it with the Carney issue.
Carney really, the
Carney,
professional
yes,
equipment, you know,
Yeah.
I think what Janice said earlier on the other goods going over to the UK would be the same, that the Carney could possibly cover that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the temporary admissions, is the export declaration document sufficient to prove temporary admission, that a temporary admission product has been exported?
It depends really, I suppose. Like, I think Janice may have mentioned this, if the goods on temporary admission, if they're coming in from, sorry now I'm getting confused, the INF3, so it's where there's a few member states involved that we need the INF3.
Okay.
That's for the returned goods relief though, isn't it? Sorry now, I'm
yeah.
getting confused.
Okay.
The INF3 isn't for the temporary admission at all, it's for the returned goods relief.
Okay.
Yeah, so if there's a few member states involved with the return goods relief, you need the INF3. If the goods went out, say, from Ireland to GP and they come back into Ireland, the export declaration is enough because we have that declaration ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
temporary.
that's it.
I was getting confused there.
That's
It's
fine.
Yeah,
And again, like if somebody wants to follow it up for their specific
yeah.
conditions, if you like,
Absolutely.
but there's just, they can
Yeah.
just pop the
Yeah.
query
Request,
into the Brexit queries. Can a relief be used when goods are brought from NI to IE or vice versa for servicing or repair?
Well, we would think you wouldn't need the relief, you know, because you're talking within the
Yeah,
EU
EU.
rules, the UCC, so a relief wouldn't be required.
So it doesn't apply at all?
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think there's a few questions around that and those kind of movements between ROI and NI, so it doesn't
need
apply.
it.
On the temporary admissions, we're back to looking at aircrafts. So aircraft registered in a third country coming to Ireland for refurbishment or overhaul, how long can they stay in Ireland before the need to be exported?
Temporary admission for aircraft, I'm not sure on the timeline.
Yeah, but if they're going to be overhauled, they may not
Yeah,
qualify under the temporary admission procedure because, as I mentioned, the intention is the goods shouldn't be processed in any way. You know, it's kind of the flip of IP.
Yeah.
IP, the intention is to process or to further enhance. Temporary admission, no. What comes in goes back out.
Okay, so that wouldn't really be appropriate
Maybe
in that process.
could be end use. Maybe if they wanted to be,
possibly, yeah. it
just
could-
explain what exactly is
Yeah.
happening. Maybe if they wanted to direct that to us. But usually, temporary admission, no processing
Yeah.
of any
I think
kind.
across these couple of modules now from this morning, it really is important that businesses have a look at their business model and have a look at all of the authorisations or facilitations that are available to see which either combination or which individuals apply and will give them the best benefit, whether it's reducing administrative burden or exposing them to reliefs altogether or to preferential duty rates. They really do need to look at their specific model and see what applies for them, don't they?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
get familiar with more of the nuances of all of these.
That's it.
Yeah, and I suppose the more detail we have on the actual business model and what's happening, you know, we can assist in, you know, what authorisation, what reliefs could apply or be beneficial.
Okay, well, look, that's great. We'll leave it there now for this panel. So, again, thanks very much, Janice, for your presentation and Breda for your participation on the panel. Our next session is coming up at 11:15 and we are looking at tariff classification and valuation. So, welcome you all back to that session at 11:15. Thanks very much.